Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode on the Yamaha FZ6. So in the last one, we managed to get this thing running, which is fantastic. We do still need to sort out the idle, run it up to temperature, check and balance all of the throttle bodies and get all of that sorted. We have managed to get a front nose cone for the bike. Unfortunately, I couldn't get one without a little bit of damage on there. It was quite a challenge to try and find one. Managed to find one, but it is going to need a little bit of repair. I've managed to get the panel for this side as well because that was missing. I've got some indicators for it coming. I'm still waiting on the rear disc for the bike. So we've got a few bits coming and a few bits that we can play with. So we're going to need to repair that nose cone. I'm probably going to paint that, paint both the panels on each side, paint the belly tray. I need to paint the tank, so quite a few of these bits are going to be painted, and that'll be quite good for the colour match of the bike. What else have we got to do? We've got the exhaust system at the back there, so the silencer and stuff like that. We've got the rear foot pegs. Obviously, when the disc turns up, we've got the wheel. I did forget to balance the wheels, so I need to take this one back off and balance them. So in this episode, what I want to try and do is get all of these things sorted so that we can present the bike for an MOT. I've now cleaned all of the exhaust and the tail tidy. I did take off this bracket here. I've cleaned that, put some anti-rust treatment on it, etch primer, and then just painted that in gloss black just to tidy that up, so that looks a bit neater. So with this part of the exhaust system, I had a broken or a seized bolt in here and there was no head on there, so I heated it up and tried to get it out, and it ended up just breaking off the captive nut that's on this clamp, which isn't a problem because I've just put a stainless steel nut and bolt through there, and that's fine. So now this assembly can go back onto the bike. Probably just take this off just to give me a bit more wiggle room. So now that one can go back in there. Try not to throw my oil can everywhere. So I just need to do these two at the back here. I'm not going to refit the mounting brackets that we had in place for what I believe was probably a top box, because they're rusty and I don't have the top box either. So what I'm probably going to do is just wind these screws in by hand, or these bolts, and just leave them in place. That way no water can get into the back of the frame there. I have also put the bungs back in. There's some foam bungs that go in here and the same the other side. So I've put those back in as well, just so that they stop any water getting into there. I have cleaned all the underside of the exhaust and all of the tail tidy assembly, but what I can do now that I've got it up like this and in place is I can clean the top section here. So we just nip them up. That's those two. Mark them as well. And then what I'll do is I'll do the one that joins the exhaust pipe, so the clamp there. I won't worry about filming that, but we can do that. Give this a clean, and then I'll probably look at just plugging this stuff in here. Might even do that in a second. So that's just going to come down to here, and then we've just got these bits. So we've got one, that one, that one. And then what I'm going to do is, it looks as if there's some cutouts here where we can cable tie this stuff down just to keep it away from the exhaust system. There we go. So that's that lot, and then there's that panel that obviously goes over that side there. Just need to do the same the other side, and then we need to put a split pin or a cotter pin just to hold that pin in there that goes through onto there. Then I'll do the same on the other side. So that little under tray done. It's all go with the body panels at the minute. I've been sanding this one down, just checking for any imperfections, and I've got a couple of small scratches here. So I've just put a bit of dolphin glaze on there. So that's just an ultra fine finishing putty. So I'm going to let that dry, sand that back, and then that one should be okay to paint. I'm going to need to prime this one because all around the front here you can see where the plastic's exposed. So I need to plastic prime that and paint that. The two front panels that sort of slide into the nose cone, I've got them hanging outside. I've sanded those back, painted them, and I'm just working my way through building the lacquer up on those. I'll grab the other two panels that sort of sit in where the nose cone is, up round where the instrument cluster is. I'll just show you those and what I'm doing with them. So that's these two panels here that I was just mentioning about. And what I'm going to do with these is just give these a real good deep clean and see if I can sort of polish them up, get them looking fairly reasonable. I've done the same with the front mudguard as well, and I've just basically did that on here, and then I've taken the front mudguard and put that in the house, so that's out the way. I will give the bike a final clean when I'm finished, because obviously I'm going to have my oily fingers all over the thing. I'll try and limit that as much as possible, but it is inevitable. And then what I will do finally is show you what I'm doing with the nose cone of the bike. So the nose cone itself, as I mentioned, is in a bit of a sorry state of affairs. This section up here was broken off. Luckily on my one, it was still on there. But on my one, obviously all this section here was broken. There's a crack right down in the front here, and then another tiny one here. So what I've done is I've used my plastic heat gun that's got these little stainless tags, and I've push those into there with some heat from the gun, and that is now nice and solid. So I'm going to trim those back, tidy those up. The same with here. There are a couple of little gaps here. I'm going to fill that with some plastic filler rod I've got. So you just heat the rod up and then you can fill that in, and then what I'm going to do is give this thing a real deep clean, sand it all back, and then probably paint this as well. I know the nose, what is it, the front screen, sorry, I know that covers this, but there's lots of scratches and marks on this, and I think, well, if I'm doing some of the other panels and I've got some paint left over, I'd rather try and get it as good as I can. It's all good practice for my painting skills as well. We now need to swap out the rear brake pads, so I'm just going to undo this brake pad pin here. I did check a moment ago just to make sure it is going to come undone. I'm going to take the piston out and just give that a clean. So you've got a little grub screw here, and then we've got an Allen key in there. That's a pin there, we will give that a clean. I will change the brake fluid and everything just to make sure that that's all fresh as well. So I'll cut my cable tie for the minute. I'm going to lean this down. I will push the brake pedal, and then that's going to allow, well, that's going to push the piston out. We can give that a good clean, make sure that the seal's okay, and then put that back in if that's nice and clean. So what I thought I would do while I was working on the back brake is I would also take care of the front and make sure that we get all the brakes sorted. I have got front pads for it, as well as I mentioned earlier, I've got rear pads for it. I was taking these calipers apart, so what I've done is I've undone these 4 bolts here which hold these caliper carriers on to the caliper themselves, and I've found something that I really wish I hadn't, because it's now going to add to my parts list again. If we take a look, I don't know if you're going to be able to make it out on the camera. Let me zoom in. Oh yeah, you can. Up there, that is cracked. So I've only undone these by hand, but yeah, that is cracked. So that caliper is no more, because I don't really want to go down the route of putting that back on. So I'm now going to need a pair of front calipers, because there's no point in trying to get one. If I was going to be rebuilding these, I'd need a piston kit and seals, and yeah, it would go on. So I think I'm going to need a pair of calipers for the front here. So I'm going to have to jump back online and see if I can get a set of those. So these are the side panels that we've got going back on. I've cleaned all the insides of these. I will clean the outside later. And I've just put a little bit of silicone spray onto the little rubber mounting tabs, just so that they push through into these rubber grommets that bit easier. So just gentle with that. Make sure all my wiring's tucked up in there out of the way. We just got a washer and a screw. Goes into there. We've got the little radiator side guards that we painted earlier. Just put a bit of engine oil on the bolts. And these can go back up and in place. Yeah, they look really nice now that they're in place. So what I'll do is I'll put the other side on. So I'm just putting the drive cushions back in to the wheel. Then we can put this sprocket assembly back in. Then I'm going to break these free using my impact gun and put the new sprocket on there, and then we can torque these up. I'm going to take this back out now, give it a bit of a clean. And as if by magic, the postman's just turned up, and hopefully inside there should be the rear disc. So I've just oiled the threads there. It's quite nice having a black sprocket on there with the black wheels. Just sets that off nicely, I think. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit record on my microphone or turn my microphone on. So I'm just marking the disc bolts and also marking up the sprocket bolts after carrying out the torque sequence on those. So they are all tight and done. So here we have our latest tool for the channel. I've managed to get hold of a wheel balancer. So we're going to put the wheel on. So we slide this rod through the centre of the wheel, and then these cones go up into the centre of the wheel here, and then we just lock them off with those little Allen keys. There's also a spirit level on the bottom of this tool, so we'll make sure that we get it nice and level. So I'm going to set that up now, and then I'll show you what you need to do to balance the wheel. Right, so we now have everything set up. What we're going to do is we're just going to allow the wheel to naturally find the heaviest point. So as you can see, it's down by the tyre valve there. So we're just going to take a piece of tape and mark where the tyre valve is. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take some wheel weights and we're going to stick them with another piece of tape to the side so that this evens out. So we know we need some more than that. So as you can see there, now with those wheel weights stuck there, the heaviest point over here isn't trying to come back round to the bottom here. So we know that we need to stick those wheel weights in place there. So I'm going to do that now, and then I can take this back off the wheel balancer and start looking to put it back on the bike. I've already greased the wheel axle and I've put that slightly into the swing arm. I've put the brake caliper carrier on as well. I have left the brake caliper off for the minute because I've got a new piston and seal kit coming for that, because that was knackered. So it's just going to be a case of putting this wheel up and into place. Just double check our tyre rotation. We are going the right way, which is good. Really didn't want to have to take that off. So I'll have to loosen these off and then I can bring that in place. There we go. And we've got those two that go onto there. I've then got that. I'm just going to push on. Welcome to the Alfresco paint booth. We've managed to get all of this primered up now. We have still got some imperfections that run around the very edge of the tank there, but I'm not too worried about that. The most part of the tank is looking much better. So what we need to do is just let that dry off, and then we're going to start shooting that with some base coat. Once we've got the base coat on there, we can then build up the lacquer. I haven't got any lacquer at the minute, so we'll just put the base coat on once this is dried. So I've now rested on our nose cone after painting this. It's turned out reasonably well. Could do with some practice, but that's what this is all about. Just keep practicing, keep doing the bikes, and hopefully we'll get better as we go. So I've just laid it on a soft cloth here, or a sheet, just because I don't want to damage any of that. What I'm going to look at doing now is just starting to put the nose cone assembly back together, just to give it some rigidity and some strength. So firstly I'm going to start with the headlight. Have already cleaned this. I'm just going to remove some of the broken tabs. Luckily none of the headlight is broken, it was the tabs on the old nose cone that were broken. So just both on the right hand side. We were really lucky that it didn't catch the headlight. So we're just going to set this into place here. And we've just got our mounting screws. Just going to put them all in loosely for now. So that's that all now into place. What I'm going to do next is fit this large bracket here that sort of holds all this assembly in one place. That's going to give it a lot more rigidity as well. So this just sits up in here like so. So you've just got your little rubber washers that go in there first. There is a broken tab on this side in comparison to this one, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the old one off and then resin that on, because to be honest that looks like it's on there with some resin anyway. So I'm thinking of doing that. What I'll probably look at doing now is seeing if I can get the wiring loom back off the bike and put that back onto here before I go too mad and then find that I need to unplug it and move it all around again. So I've got to take a step back, take this frame back out in the headlight, because there's 1, 2 and then down there is a third screw which holds these panels on. Those 2 panels there, they have also been painted as well, so they're looking nice and fresh. So I'm going to whip that back off, see if I can get those in place. Right, take 2, let's have another go. So this panel here goes like so. I think what I've learnt with my painting is next time when I do the lacquering, I need to get a can which has got the nozzle on the end, which has got like a fan, because I found that the ones I was using, you may well be able to see in the video footage, but the lacquer's just not as good as it really could be. I don't think I got enough lacquer on there, but with me and paintwork, I tend to get to a point where I've done okay, and then at the last minute I end up ruining it all. So I'm going to learn from that and leave it alone. I think the overall finish is pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with it. Now just putting the top 2 screws in here that hold the top of the speedo, and I have put some oil on those because they are threaded into like a rubber fitting, but I actually found that the last one had got itself seized in there, which wasn't that helpful. Managed to get the front screen onto the bike. You've just got 4 screws up here, and then there is one tucked right underneath, and I've just put a plastic trim popper in there. So it's like a cylindrical popper that you push in, and then there's a screw that pushes in underneath it here. So now we can turn this round, and now I'm going to be looking to put the mirrors on. I have just given the mirror arms a little bit of a paint. I will need to clean the glass because that's filthy, but I'll do all that at the end. Just a bit of oil on those. I won't worry too much about fitting these rubber sections yet, because you actually need this infill piece here, which we'll put on the bike. The mirrors don't have a torque setting. I'm going to look at fitting this indicator now on the left hand side. I'm still waiting for the right hand side one to turn up, but this just pushes into place. So it's just behind these 2 plugs here, so the rubber foot sort of pushes in, and then you've got this clip which goes over here. Then these 2 tags sit in these little rubber bits there, and they just stop that from coming out. So we'll clip that into place. I'm going to now look to tuck the front end onto the bike. I might need to take it back off because I've still got that indicator to fit and some other bits, but I just want to put it here so I don't risk damaging it, leaving it lying around. So it just hooks on like that. Got 2 bolts that go through. So we have got these 2 plugs that go from the main loom up to the instrument cluster. So I'm going to plug those in. I'm going to fit this bracket here as well, because this bracket goes into here and then part of the fairing holds that in place. As I mentioned maybe I would do was take the front end back off, and I have. I've just tidied up the wiring here for the heated grips because I want to make sure they're all connected back in. So I've just made sure that they're not interfering with anything, cable tied them up neatly so they go off up to the grips there. I have also put the bracket that we put on this side for the fairing, I've put that side on. I'm going to put the front end back on, torque up these 2 bolts. They're 33 Newton meters. I'm going to plug the connectors back in. I'm not going to put these infill panels in yet that go in here because I've still got the indicator for this side, and I need the front brakes to turn up as well so we can put them on, and the hose runs to like a clip holding piece here. So I just want to make sure that I give myself enough room to access that. So we've now torqued up the 2 main bolts that hold the assembly or the bracketry for this front end here. We are going to now look at putting the indicator on the other side. My friend James came through. He's got an indicator for me off of my old bike where he's upgraded them. So we're going to put that in now, and then we can look at securing this fairing on and in place a bit better, because there's some screws around the side here that hold it on. That's now all in and clipped in place. So that's it for today's video, guys. I think I'm going to leave it there. I don't want the video to get too long, but at the same time, I'm still trying to get that balance of making sure I get enough of the steps that I'm going through so that you see what's involved when I'm doing these project bikes. Hopefully in the next one, we're going to take care of everything else, get it all MOT'd, get it all looking nice and clean and ready for the road. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.